Hey everyone, it's Kellen Brower from RacerX, back again with another race examination video where we're going to take a look at some things at Daytona. And of course, we're going to start out with this man right here and this man right here. They're of course Jason Anderson and Malcolm Stewart, and they do not like each other. They have had a little bit of a budding history that goes back a long ways, but of course, just last week in Arlington, they got together in the first race of the Triple Crown. Jason Anderson putting Malcolm Stewart on the ground, and then they kind of tangled after that. But if you all go all the way back to Anaheim 1, they actually tangled in the heat race as well. And then way before that, they've also had many run-ins in both the 450 and 250 class as well. So they have a little bit of history. And then, of course, what happens after this is coming down the inside, Anderson's going to hit Tomac and Stewart. Stewart goes off the track to the outside. We're going to see a little replay of it right here. You can see Anderson come down the inside. They all kind of just collect, and then Stewart goes off the side of the track. As he's off the side of the track, he'll click up a gear, jump back on, and Anderson coming down into this corner kind of blows the rut anyway, but Malcolm was already kind of seeing red at that point, and they get into each other, and they both go down. So let's kind of break this whole thing down and really figure out what exactly happened here. So first off, coming through this rhythm section, you can see Anderson coming down the inside, and if you just look at Anderson, his line into this corner pretty much mimics the line he took all the way down the straightaway. It's not like he's taking a super sharp inside line, and then even so, he kind of turns down as low as you could in this corner, maybe even a little bit lower with Sexton, but it's not like he went right to the top of the berm. And even if we go back to last week in Arlington, same thing happened with Anderson and Stewart and Brayton, of all people, down the inside right here. They just do the same exact thing that we see at Daytona, and Anderson ends up on the outside of this one like Stewart does later on at Daytona. So you can see they make contact right here. It kind of squeezes Tomac in, but Stewart gets stood up the same way that we see Anderson from Arlington the week before. Stewart elects to go off the side of the track. And off the side of the track, he'll click up through some gears, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But just kind of talking about this incident, it's very similar and reminiscent of a lot of, first corner incidents. And even from this back view, again, you can see Anderson, I mean, he comes down the inside hot, but another thing that exacerbates this situation is Stewart's turning down into basically the lowest available rut in this corner. And really, it's kind of three lines coming into one. Again, Anderson did come down the inside aggressively, and of course, Malcolm Stewart's going to be upset. But it's not as egregious of a second turn situation that we don't normally see. You can see Stewart right there kind of chicken-legged and click up a gear off the side of the track, and we'll talk about, right here, why he got penalized and why he wouldn't have won this race anyway. But he did get a penalty. Anderson also did the same thing later on. You can see Stewart, when he rejoins the track, is much further ahead of Sexton and Tomac than he was. And if we go to the Supercross rulebook, this is Rule 4.15I. It says a rider leaving the course may continue the race by properly re-entering the track at the closest safe point to where the rider left the course without gaining advantage. If we go down to 2 in Rule 4.15I, it says if a rider accelerates in an unsafe manner while off course or cuts part of the race course, the rider may be determined to have gained an advantage without gaining a position. That's what happened with Stewart. That's also what happened with Anderson a little bit later on in the race. They would both receive a one-position penalty. So at that point, doesn't matter if Stewart gets on and just does, a normal race from here. He's going to lose the race anyway because he'll be docked a position. Anderson at the end of the straightaway blows the rut, which makes this problem a whole lot worse. But Stewart was just going to come down the inside, and if he wanted to stay, out of Anderson here, he just lets off the throttle right there. But he just goes straight into the side of Anderson. It was kind of obvious at that point that he was fed up with the situation. He was fed up with Anderson from the week before. Again, coming into this corner at Daytona, they get together again. Stewart ends up off the track, and they both go down. And it's a bummer for both riders because they were both riding very well all day long. Both definitely had a shot to win the race, and their shenanigans kind of continued. Stewart's going to go down a little bit later on in the main event right here, get hung up in this corner. Anderson trying to cut back underneath Dean Wilson, hits him. They go down. And again, just a situation that's kind of a bummer for both because they really did have a legit shot at winning this race. A little bit later on, though, two guys that definitely had a shot at winning this race, Cooper Webb and Eli Tomac, coming down the whoops. Webb is going to just get cut to the inside here by Shane McElrath as they're lapping him, and Tomac's able to get by. This is coming to 3 to go, so they were pretty late into the main event, and Tomac was catching Webb the whole way, so you could argue that Tomac was going to get him anyway. But if we just look at the situation, Webb was always going down the right side of the whoops right here, so this is nothing new. But right here, he has two options. He could continue down the right side and hope that they split McElrath, which is what he'll elect to do, or he could try to cut back and maybe even cut off Tomac going down the left side of the whoops. These guys can change direction on the whoops, but it's not the easiest thing to do, and definitely could have made matters worse if he crosses over into Tomac or whatever. He's just hoping that McElrath stays straight. McElrath continues to just slowly come over to the right side of the track, block Webb out, and Webb almost had to come to a complete stop. Tomac takes advantage, just chops the line off and goes to the inside line anyway. Again, a lot of people are saying that maybe Tomac just makes that pass anyway. He had a much better drive down the whoops, but at least we would have seen whether or not Webb could have just, ran him high in that corner, maybe held on for another lap, maybe made the race a little bit more interesting. In the end, though, Tomac able to make that pass, scoot away, and kind of pulled out to like a 5-second advantage, because it seemed like after that, Webb knew that he wasn't going to be able to get back to Tomac. Tomac turned on the afterburners a little bit towards the end of the race, and on he goes to win his record-setting 6th Daytona Supercross, extending his championship lead by a ton now after the Anderson and Stewart drama ensued behind him. Of course, the classic Daytona burnout as always, and Tomac now the king of Daytona as we head into round 10 in Detroit. I want to remind everybody that this video is presented by OnX Off-Road. Know where to go with the #1 off-road GPS app. Access 500,000 plus miles of trails and roads, open dates, and public lands. Download the OnX Off-Road app today. Moving on to the 250 class, just a couple quick things to talk about from this main event. First, RJ Hampshire's crash while battling inside of the top 5. He had a yo-yo kind of main event. Him and Cameron McAdoo both seemed to go back and forth with either passing guys or getting passed by guys. But this crash is kind of similar to a lot of incidents we saw on this tricky jump all day long. Guys were trying to double from out of the inside, and a couple of guys got really sketchy. In this case, Hampshire just kind of clips the top, noses into the landing, and goes down. Pretty easy crash for how bad it could have been, but obviously in the end, Hampshire had a little bit rougher of a main event than I think he was hoping to. As for McAdoo, though, this is a pretty good charge for the 48 machine, because he actually said that in his heat race, he dabbed his knee a little bit wrong and felt like things maybe popped or something like that. So he had a sore knee the rest of the night, said things are good to go from here, but able to get back to 3rd after having a bit of a lull halfway through the main event. But Jet Lawrence, in his first trip to Daytona, is the victor and able to pull out to a 5-point advantage in the championship now. The burnout was not ideal. He had to take several attempts to get the burnout in, and even he admitted it was not great.
Yeah, I need to work on those if I ever
work
do
on those.
All right. One.
But that doesn't matter in the end of it all, because now he has the points lead heading into round 4 of the 250 East Championship this weekend in Detroit.